investment focus is actually on the infrastructure for the next generation of the internet, Web3, if you like. And we've been working with Fetch for the last 18 months or so. And so it's just an opportunity for myself to introduce you to Humayun Sheikh, the founder and CEO, and to tell a little bit of the story.
So we talked about currency and all the digital currency and using the currency for probably the last two days, and that's generally the topic. What we're building in Fetch is a place to use this digital currency, and we're building a digital world where this new economy can develop and grow. And we do that by building an autonomous agent framework where you can make the agents autonomous to do an economic task and exchange economic values. So that's what Fetch is. And as a side product of that, what happens is that when this economy grows, you could be building an intelligence within the economy, and we like to call it a collective superintelligence. So we're doing two things where we're providing a framework where things can happen and economic value can exchange, and also develop the machine learning and AI, which actually enables this economy to grow further.
So we'll talk about some of the use cases in a minute, but what I'd be really interested to hear is what was your personal inspiration for Fetch?
So my background is in computer science, but I've spent most of the last 10 years working in commodity exchange, commodity pricing, price predictions. And the two of the co-founders with me, one is Toby Simpson, who has worked on developing these massively multiplayer online games from bottom-up approach, enabling these agents and these entities to grow from bottom up and solve these problems from bottom up. And my other co-founder, which is Thomas Hayne, is in the academia, machine learning and AI, is a professor in Sheffield. So we've talked about this for the last 10 years, effectively. The problem we had was that how do you bring this whole thing to life? How do you enable in this digital world to take all these digital assets and use them to unlock the economic potential? You can't do that in an old traditional way, so you need to do it in a more digital way. But what you can't do is, unless you are able to decentralize it, you can't actually unlock that economic potential, because the speed of data, the speed of analytics, it has to be in the digital world. So Fetch is a way of bringing the real world and the digital world together.
I see. And tell me a little bit more about collective superintelligence. That's quite an out there phrase, but it's got some underpinning that I think is quite interesting.
The phrase actually comes from a book called Superintelligence by Nick Bostrom. I'm sure some of you have read it. In that book, he identifies three types of superintelligence. My involvement has been in the past with the DeepMind, which is quite well known in the machine learning AI space. I was the first investor in that company, one of the first investors, I guess. So we were looking at different types of intelligence, but let me lay out the types of intelligence which Nick Bostrom lays out in his book. So we have this speed superintelligence, which means that if you throw enough compute power on something, you could excel the intelligence, and you can make it super intelligent. So that includes price predictions and all that kind of, where the computers, the sheer speed can actually outpace human intelligence. Then you have the quality intelligence, which is more the area of artificial general intelligence, where the quality of algorithms and trying to make them think more like humans, act more like humans, but added to the speed intelligence, superhumans effectively. Where our focus is that, which is the collective superintelligence side, which is that you can use very small, non-complex algorithms and you can put them together if there is enough of them. If you have enough algorithms running on a system developed by individuals, you could actually bring them all together to build this collective superintelligence, which could unlock various correlations between different verticals. And that's really where Fetch's focus is.
I suppose, and with that final case, I think everyone in the room, I imagine, instinctively can see how a decentralized system could support that sort of setup. One of the things that I think we've seen in the last 12, 18 months is an increasing interest and focus on artificial intelligence within distributed or decentralized systems. And I'd just like to hear from you why you think that's an opportunity.
Well, if you look at the space today, I mean, most of machine learning and AI is kind of held together with big corporates. The reason being that they have a lot of money, they have an already deployed infrastructure, they have already got systems and marketplaces running where they can deploy this machine learning and AI. And actually they're taking away all the IP capital. They're taking away all the intelligent people in the space. So it's leaving very little whereby smaller players could actually build this machine learning and AI. And then we have these dangers of, well, it's an AI race. Who is going to win it? To be able to democratize it, as I think Mark was mentioning in his fireside chat, is to open it to people so they can actually build part of this intelligence and own part of this intelligence. Because that is the next phase of our economic growth where this will come from. So in our case, what we are trying to do is to build a framework which enables everybody, because we are all data producers and we all use prediction models in our life, but these are being controlled by big corporates. We are trying to democratize it in a way that you can actually not only deploy the solution, but you can be part of the solution. So you can actually gain economic benefit and value out of the solution.
So some of these terms we're talking about here, the future economy, agent-based economy, sort of they're quite out there. We're sort of talking about a future world where these things will be delivering huge amounts of value. I'd like to look into that in two ways. One, which is I'd like to understand your vision about how that future economy might work, and then maybe in a minute we'll talk about and how will we get there and what will be some of the next things that would happen.
Well, you say it's quite far-fetched, but it isn't really. I mean, self-drive cars are coming along. But I quite like to quote this. I mean, Tesla is always in the media somehow. I was watching this BBC report the other day, and there was a Tesla which was driving, and a car comes in, and there was a car in front of the Tesla which they put a dummy car. Now the car comes in, Tesla notices it. As soon as the car leaves, the Tesla speeds up and hits the car in front. Now, in a Fetch world, that wouldn't happen because you would have all these cars exchanging data and exchanging information, whereby the car in front is already making the Tesla aware that I'm in front and I'm braking. Now, all that is great because that is what's going to enable the next phase of the autonomous vehicles and autonomous economies. But the problem is, unless you actually define the right incentive structure, unless you build the right economic model which runs these agents, it's all immaterial because you can't unlock that economic potential. So we are carefully working out an economic framework which fits into these agents, because these agents need to run in a fashion which actually is economically viable for everybody. But on the further along from that is that you also need to build a legal structure. So your agent needs to be auditable. The actions it took need to be auditable. So we're integrating all that within the agents and then letting them loose on the framework.
So what you're saying is it's enabling a human-to-machine interactions and also machine-to-machine actions together. Absolutely
has to be, because unless you create that bridge of the real world to the digital world, then you cannot exploit the full potential of it.
So let's think about, are there any areas that you're looking at the moment where we could
We're looking at some
value?
desperate areas, disparate sections of areas. So, where, for example, a transport where there is already a lot of traction. But if you try and set up a journey like coming to Gibraltar, it should be pretty straightforward and simple. But the flights get delayed and everything happens. So a very simple application is that you create your travel agent. Now the travel agent can actually take care of all the hassle, all the friction which you have. If a flight gets delayed, your agent already is aware, arranges the right Uber. If it's a self-drive, it already is aware. So there is a complete economic model which enables you to cut out the friction if you make it autonomous. But also we're looking at healthcare, which is quite an interesting sector because it sits in great silos because you have these big management systems which sit in very specific silos. So you have this prescription system, you have this consultant booking system, and the hospital X-ray system. So if you take an agent and you train the agent and it makes your health agent, you could train it on all those systems. You don't need these complex integration of these huge management systems where, these NHS-like bodies are spending billions in. You could make it very transportable. So your health agent could be communicating with the health authorities in the US or in the UK, and they can directly query the agent. So making it a lot simpler than what it already is, and completely taking out the need for making these complex integration systems.
I was also very struck by a conversation we were having yesterday afternoon about making inefficient economic systems more efficient, and supply chains and commodities was something that you were sort of talking to me about then.
Again, like transportation, logistics, these are all systems which are managed from top down. The problem with top down is it scales to a level, and after that it becomes very, very difficult to manage. We now have the technology, we now have the algorithms and the compute power to enable these systems to learn from bottom up. And the best solution to do this is to allow these agents to develop and grow based on the intelligence which the whole system holds for the benefit for all.
That's a great point, and that ties in with, I thought I was, why would a public sort of token distribution, a wide public token distribution work well for Fetch? Why does that kind of thing?
Well, we need these agents to interact, so we do need to build that community. That could be a very good incentivization structure in that. So that enables us to deliver that. But also, don't forget, we talked a lot about utility tokens, and that's where the innovation is. In a true digital world, we have used tokens forever. If you look at massively multiplayer online gaming, we've always used tokens. These tokens not just enable, in this case, wouldn't just enable the economic exchange, but it also enables us to compete in the world where these big corporates have huge amounts of money. So public token sale kind of arrangement enables us to actually hire the right type of people and form these right communities to actually deliver this project, which is quite an ambitious project.
And when we think about AI systems, I think that they rely on huge amounts of data to be able to create correlations. And you had an interesting point that you made to me around the limitations of private businesses that exist currently outside of the big data monopolists, and how this potentially could be an alternative.
But I think big data is used too often in the wrong context, because what is big data? Big data does nothing. What is needed is actionable predictions. It's the predictions we need. So, for example, should I go out with an umbrella or not? That's a prediction. I don't care about the weather data. There is nothing I want to do with it. As long as something tells me that it's going to rain, you better take your umbrella with you. Or don't leave your house. Leave your house in 5 minutes, otherwise you're only going to get caught up in congestion for another hour. That's what I need. I don't need traffic data. So what the model enables is that we are training these prediction models without storing this big data. We hand over the model to the people to train, and the collective model is what we deploy. So it's a completely shift of the use of data and the value of the data, because data is not always that valuable once the time has passed. So some data value disappears as time passes, but the value of the prediction model doesn't disappear. So we're trying to capture that value in the prediction model.
And how would you compare that to, say, I mean, you mentioned your previous association with DeepMind. I mean, they sold to Google for what seemed like a huge amount of money at the time, but that's...
Well, that's again a problem with machine learning, with this whole space, because you build these models, but unless you have a place which is large enough to deploy these prediction models, you're always going to be beholden to these big companies, because these big companies have already got the infrastructure where just a small application could save them millions and billions of dollars. So in DeepMind, I think if DeepMind was able to continue for another year, for example, like till today, it would have been valued in billions, not 500 million. That's what it sold to Google for. And the reason why Google was happy to pay that is within a year, it actually paid off, because they applied one of their algorithms to save energy for their data centers. So unless you build this machine learning and you allow this machine learning to be used somewhere, there is very little value for a company developing it unless it can sell it to the big corporates.
So, final question then would be, you sort of talk about the value for all and participation in the network. How easy do you intend for it to be to somebody to participate in the Fetch network? When
it should be as easy as saying to Siri to set up my agent. Now, that could be a health agent, it could be a travel agent, it could be your personal agent, which enables you to unlock some of the potential value from your data. So it's as simple as going online and setting up a form, 5 or 6 clicks, and you have an agent launched on Fetch.
And what's next on the horizon for you guys on that basis?
Well, it's an ambitious project, but we're looking to do it in stages. So we're building a smart ledger which is inherently intelligent, which can cope with quite a lot of the problems of today. So you can deploy an ecosystem, but it provides you, intelligence from within. So when you transact between two parties, you can get the trust information. You can also get a probabilistic modeling done on a transaction itself. So how likely is this transaction? So that could improve the transaction rates quite considerably. I'm not talking about just the value exchange or the currency. I'm also talking about many other things where you can actually predict the next actions, and that comes from within the ledger. So that is the launch initially within the 6 months' time. We have a system running in testnet mode at the moment. We'll be launching that in August, September time, only for the testnet, and then in a year's time there will be a full release.
Fantastic. It's a very exciting project, so I'm very glad to be part of it with you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you for TokenMarket.